What's up, control freaks, and welcome back to the Control Freak podcast. I am your host, Les Alex, and in today's episode, I have on a very special guest. He is an amazing control player and currently playing Dimir Control, the one, the only, Hey Pharaoh, aka John Pharaoh. John, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I am well, no complaints, no complaints. Just excited to talk to you about Dimir, a deck that recently has kind of been put on the back burner, I feel, thanks to, all the fun new iterations of Azorius that we've been seeing popping up, of course,
Yeah.
since the RC weekend. But I think, Dimir content, I will say, on my channel at least, does insane numbers. Like, Azorius is always steady, does pretty good. And then I'll drop a Dimir video and it'll do insane numbers. So Dimir
People,
fans, Dimir
yeah,
players.
they love playing black cards. I
Oh
get it.
yeah, they're good. They're very, very good. Before we do get started though, of course, gotta get the housekeeping stuff out of the way. And before we delve into your mind to learn about Dimir Control, I do want to give a huge shout out to my new Patreon members. Shout out to Richard Bostain, Raul Perez, Josh Anderson, and Sam Woods. Thank you all so much. Those are the brand new Patreon members from this past week. I do appreciate it, everybody. And if you enjoy the podcast and would like to support the content in a more direct and monetary way, you can head on over to patreon.com/lessalex. Every Patreon member receives an awesome Control Freak sticker along with other perks based on whichever level you would like to support at. And I just posted my first and second updates to my sideboard guide for the Azorius Control deck that I've been playing. So you can go check that out. And I update it every week, sometimes it's two times a week. But you can gain access to that sideboard guide at the lowest tier right now by heading over to patreon.com. Again, /lessalex. Go check it out. And as a reminder, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoy the content, it literally takes 30 seconds to head on over to either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, rate 5 stars. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give a nice sentence or two saying how much you enjoy the podcast. It really does help out the algorithm because that's how they kind of prioritize whenever you type in Magic the Gathering or whatever, I'll rank higher. And it really, really does help. So appreciate everybody who's went to both of those platforms and rate and reviewed. Make sure to check out my Quiet Speculation articles. I'm writing for them on a weekly basis. This past week, I talked about Lotus Combo, and my next piece is going to be on Azorius Lotus Control. So check that out. Quiet Speculation's awesome, and can't speak higher of the folks over there with Quiet Speculation. And if you want to chop it up to me in a more casual way, you can follow me on Twitter at LessAlex. Don't forget to join the open and free Discord, which will be linked below. All right, that's the housekeeping. I'm done shilling for myself for now. And hey, if I can't shill for myself, like who can I shill for, right?
You gotta chill. I get it.
I gotta pay the bills, right? No, but I'm excited to talk to you. I saw you playing in the RC at Dallas, and I was so stoked. I was like, "Yeah, let's go, Dimir." Um, but your list is super spicy. Before we delve into the deck, though, I do want to talk about you before we talk about the magical cards, because the magical cards are great. But let's talk about you first. How did you start playing Control in general?
All right. Uh, when I finally started playing competitively, moved from the kitchen table to an F&M, basically a store. Was right around end of Shards block, and by the end of Rise of the Eldrazi, there was this Super Friends deck that I saw. So it had, a Johnny Vengeant, Gideon, Elspeth Knight Errant, uh, Jace, so and a bunch of spells to control and take over the game.
Oh yeah.
That's so very interesting to me, but it's actually interesting because there's a period of time after that um, where I didn't like to play blue, which I think a lot of people didn't like to play blue because of how oppressive Cobblade was. Um,
That's fair. That's fair.
so luckily, my friend beat that out of me because I kept wanting to play Huntmaster of the Fells and Birds of Paradise decks.
Boo.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And we played on the kitchen table before a tournament, and he's like, "You're gonna play Delver," and I said, "Okay, well if you beat me a bunch, sure." And he beat me literally 25 games to 0. I could not beat the Delver deck, and I'm like, "Fine, I'll play blue cards, whatever."
Yeah, let's go. Shout out to that guy.
And so it brought me back into the fold. But since then, I pretty much, played control and sometimes slipped into combo, maybe some four color or more value piles, but pretty much always control. So that's how it started.
Awesome.
And then
Yeah,
it's
that's funny that because that's right when I started playing like a little bit more competitively. It was like Delver was like the first like 75 for
mhm.
75 exact like quote unquote net deck that I ever made. And oh, that deck was so good. The deck was so good.
It had a lot of powerful tools for a standard format.
Oh yeah.
Hit probe, ponder. I mean, it was very good.
Mental misstep if you wanted it. Like
Yeah, mental misstep, mana leak. I mean,
gut shot, gotta kill the other Delvers, right?
it's true. It's true. As a sidebar, I had a guy at a PTQ. We sit down to play during Delver Standard, and he goes, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "I have no idea who you are." And he goes,
It's very
"At at this SCG
ominous.
we played, and you revealed a bonfire of the damned with your Delver to kill my three Delvers." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did do that."
That's hot. Oh, that's awesome. Um, awesome.
Anyways,
So Delver was the first time you were like, okay, let's play some blue cards for real.
yeah, that was, and then that was yeah. So that was the first time I was getting like super competitive
Right.
and played uh, countertop and legacy and
Nice.
all the various standard iterations of control, the Sphinx Rev decks,
Oh yeah. Ivan Flock's Flock. um, yes, we remember them well.
and
I yearn for a standard that would be I just yearn for a control deck that would be that dominant again. I don't care what you could put it in any format you want, but
yeah, creatures
um,
creatures are kind of a little bit better now,
creatures are nuts
even from
now.
those days.
Oh yeah, we thought Thragtusk was oppressive. Like holy smokes. Um, all right, so what is your favorite format in Magic the Gathering?
Currently, at this moment, I mean, for as long as
Whichever.
I've
Yeah,
okay,
whichever.
for as long as I've known about it, like Cube has been my favorite format. But if we're talking
Cube is
about
sweet.
constructed, um, Legacy was fun when that was a thing. It's I guess getting killed off now,
F in chat.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't play Standard anymore. But out of the two formats I play, which are Modern and Pioneer, um, Pioneer's really grown on me. So I'd have to say Pioneer right now.
Thank
It's
you.
uh,
Man,
it's come a
everybody
long way.
my like I think like the 5 past guests I've had on the podcast were like, "Oh man, I really love Pioneer." And they'll say all these nice things about Pioneer. They're like, "But it's modern." And I'm just like, "All right. I like
See,
Pioneer."
I've come the other way.
Yeah.
I was die hard modern, and then once
Oh,
I
me
got into
too.
Pioneer more, I realized that the format is deeper than it may seem on the surface.
Absolutely. It really is, and I think a lot of people's criticisms about it, like the big one is like it's a 70-30 format or whatever. But like you can play decks that don't have that matchup. You can opt out of that. Like, yeah, you can play Lotus combo and just get smushed by spirits, but like there are decks that don't just die to the matchup roulette or whatever. So
Well, and that's part. I mean, honestly, that's part of having a format that you know you there are just less answers in this format. I mean, there are going to be more polarized matchups. I don't think I do think there are some matchups that are pretty bad on either side.
oh yeah,
Um,
certainly. Like the data
but
doesn't lie. But
yeah, like blue white versus Lotus Field. I think that is a terrible matchup for blue white. They have infinite time to set up and can just overload you on a turn when you try to actually apply pressure. But you know, it
it
you have
that
to go into the format understanding that.
yeah.
And
And yeah, and I mean according to and I obviously like statistics are great, right? And I did just say the stats don't lie, but so for that matchup in specific, like I think it's slightly favored in Lotus's like I'm saying very like 47%. Like that's pretty close to 50. But yeah, I mean, to your point though, they do. I mean, we just give them infinite time. So,
I will say against a good Lotus player, they're gonna wait for the turn where they
oh
get
yeah,
to pressure you and go off. Where they're just gonna overload your mana, force you to counter something, hidden strings your last two lands, and then go off.
yep, oh yeah,
So I mean it's not unwinnable, but it's not great. It's not
it's
a
not
matchup you
great.
sit down
No,
and you're like, man, I'm glad I'm playing against Lotus Field.
right. I don't think any. I don't even think Lotus players want to play against Lotus. Um, cool. So Cube, all time historic, but currently in terms of constructed, you like Pioneer. Yay, go Pioneer. And then speaking of best format, favorite format, what do you think, in your opinion, is the best format for control? Be it, you know, Lotus, be it Dimir, be it Jeskai, whatever flavor you pick, you can pick your poison, but what's the best
The be-
format for control?
the best control format's Legacy because you have all the busted cards that are blue. But
Wild
talking about
card.
I mean, talking about actual formats that
Actual
people are going to play
not
on the best
dead
list,
formats.
unfortunately. I mean, you can play it on Magic Online, but I can't speak to Standard because I don't play that format. But between Modern and Pioneer, um, I would say Pioneer probably is a better format for control. Um, I know control overall in Modern has been struggling. You know, it
I mean,
there's a lot that you have to answer,
my
and
my issue with modern control is somebody will look me dead in the face and say, "Oh yeah, here's my control deck," and then it's like a bunch of omnaths and like a bunch of other creature garbage, and I'm like, "This
Andy,
is
that's a
not.
full
I don't
color.
claim this control deck here. This is not control. This is like omnath elemental, and you just
Yeah,
happen to have like counter spells in it or
yeah.
whatever."
Three,
Like,
three, three counter spells. We can't
yeah.
play four.
Oh wait, hold
Now,
on. There is a supreme verdict in the list, so I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's a control deck.
you
Like,
can wish
no,
for it.
no, that is not a control deck, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do think the classic blue white has struggled. When I played it in the past, in modern,
Yeah,
it's been either like the Wafo Tapa, like you never tap out control, or um the opposite where you're just 4 Narsets for Teferi and you're just trying to cheat,
Days
control the game
Undoing.
to cheat. Yeah, you're trying to actually play closer to the legacy version of, hey, I'm just going to play these high value cheap walkers and get the game to a point where I'm going to draw 7 cards and you're going to draw one,
Right.
and then take over the game with just value.
And Wafotapa, I think, just won a Pioneer Challenge, so I'm probably gonna have a
With
bunch of
basically
people
the same exact 75 that he has
that
been playing forever, which
right.
I think is great. I mean, I think I really enjoyed it. The only issue I had with it is in real life closing games. That's the only problem.
Yeah. Well, in my counter argument, because I know people will come in the comments and be like, "Yeah, but Wafotapa just won or whatever." Like, bro, you myself, if you're listening to this or watching this, unless your name is Guillaume Wafatapa, you are not Guillaume Wafatapa, and you cannot do what that.
If I
He's the
if I
best. He's the best control player ever, right? Like,
He's very good. I mean, anytime that I play a Waffle Taco deck, I immediately cut some card that's good in the mirror and add one more removal spell
that.
because he's a mad genius and it will work for him every time. But I'm
Mhm.
like, I need the extra removal spell because
You have to.
I'm gonna die to the Ragavan.
Yep.
But he'll always have the answer. It doesn't matter.
He'll
So
like cut all the removal, bring in all the counter magic, and that's his deck list. He
the
could
last
probably
time
he could probably play with mono blue control, to be honest. Like,
I remember one time Waffle and I played in a random MTGO league,
yeah.
and it was the control mirror, and he just had like this is when no one played Electrolyze, and he just has 4 Electrolyze in his deck, and I'm like, and like a bunch of Think Twice, and I'm like, I can never beat this. He's just drawing so many cards.
That's
So
hot.
yeah, he
He's a
he
god.
he always he always comes prepared to beat the mirror for sure. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
if you're
It's
gonna
so
pick up a
funny.
Wafo Tapa deck, just understand you got to kind of be Wafo Tapa
Yeah, it
to
ain't
take it to a
happening
big
for you.
tournament.
It ain't happening for you. You can play that. You can take your like 3-2 in a moto league or whatever, and maybe you 5-0. But yeah, I couldn't imagine playing his list in a big tournament that I paid. Well, an RC obviously like American ones are free or whatever, but like even an RCQ, I'm spending $20 and I know I'm gonna get crushed all day. um,
Yeah.
but
I mean, to that point, like at SCG Con Charlotte, like I played a very close list of Wafo. Uh, Luna, also a very good control player, played a very close list of Wafo. And, you know, I feel like both her and I are very timely control players, but both of us, you know, still had issues with, especially if you get time, the match goes long or you're playing against someone who is particularly slow. The
oh
deck
yeah,
just is very light on win con, so and with modern being as powerful as it is, sometimes it just takes too long to win the game with
yep,
sharks.
yeah. I feel that. I've not gone to a draw with Pioneer Azorius Control. I've gone over the years to plenty of draws in Modern. Um,
I
to
will
your point,
say
so
as we kind of transition, uh, the same theory in Dimir with the sharks as your win con and pioneer kills way quicker than Azorius control, which is surprising.
nice. Well, that is a beautiful transition into the deck. So I'm gonna bring it on screen currently. Let's get it. And if you're listening, let me just read through it real quick. I know I kind of hate doing this because it doesn't make for good radio, but let me just read through the deck list for real quick. So 2 Narsets, 4 Shark Typhoons, 1 Meat Hook Massacre, 2 Thoughtseize, 1 Extinction Event, 1 Ritual of Suit, 4 Considers, 4 Fatal Push, 3 Make Disappear, 2 Change Equations, 2 Negate, 2 Shieldred's Edict, 2 Drown in the Lock, 2 Memory Deluge, 2 Dig Through Time, 1 Cling to Dust, some lands. There are some lands in here, 25 to be exact. And then the sideboard is Chrome Host Seed Shark as a 2 of, 2 Mystical Disputes, 2 Siphon Insight, which I saw you play that and I was like, that is spicy. 1 Negate, 1 Cling to Dust, 1 Noxious Grass, 1 Extinction Event, 1 Path of Peril, 1 Kalitas Trader of Get, 1 Shieldred the Apocalypse, 1 Unmoored Ego, and 1 Pithing Needle. Whew. All right. I do apologize for those watching, but it is honestly like the best way to convey the information to the
Just run through it.
listener. But it's over. And all right. So,
So you
Siphon,
may hit it with
I
you
got
may
to
hit
know
it with
about
the
this
call
Siphon
out.
Insight. I got to know
All right,
about this Siphon Insight. Let's start there.
no, we'll jump into that in a second. But
Okay.
just
Okay.
so people understand, you know, the deck, your win cons are for Shark Typhoon. You have 2 Narsets, you have 1 Gyrish Sanitarium. You can lock out the game, but the way you kill your opponent is either 4 Shark Typhoons or a 1 Hall of Storm Giants.
Oh yeah,
This is
Singleton Hall.
this is very much a, classic draw go control deck where you are answering things until you're ready to turn the corner and kill your opponent. Um, if you are going to play this deck, an important thing to remember is you can be, you can cycle your first 2 Shark Typhoons very like sometimes I cycle it for no shark, just 1 blue
Right.
draw card.
Sometimes you got to hit
Sometimes
your land drops.
yeah, or you need to revolt for Fatal Push.
Yeah.
Um, and but those last 2 Shark Typhoons, like you should be looking to navigate the game to a point where either you're going to make a big enough shark and they can't kill it, like they don't have, they're not playing black, they're playing red, whatever, or you're going to have to get the game to a point where you just hardcast a
Resolve
Shark
it.
Typhoon and take over. I mean, it's pretty easy to get there, but you need to just mentally understand that if you're going to play this deck, that's where you have to take the game as you progress.
Yeah. There's no fail safes, right?
You got to make your cards count. But yeah, we can jump into the board. So the Siphon Insight was something I had tried a little bit before Dallas, and then basically I sat down, went through every matchup, and wanted a card that you could bring in versus Rakdos versus Control. And I landed on Siphon Insight. I
Yeah.
don't know if it is the card I would want forever in that slot. It was fine. It was
Yeah.
it was very good. It has a high ceiling and a very low floor.
Very low floor.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's I would prefer Think Twice, but then I would build a different deck if Think Twice was legal in the format. Uh, but it was fine. I think when I after after the fact, I think I'd rather just have another Shieldred and probably um, maybe one more Thoughtseize in the board. Because I mean,
Yeah.
Thoughtseize is pretty good in those matchups as well. But you know,
Um
I
and
it was good. It was good when it was good for sure.
so for those that don't know, Siphon Insight, because I had to look it up. I saw you cast it on the regional championship, you know, live when they were streaming it. But it is a blue and a black. For an instant, you get to look at the top 2 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down and put the other on the bottom of the that library. You may look at and play the exiled card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast the spell, and then as flashback for generic blue black. Yeah, this is as you said. I mean, right? This is a huge upside. You like steal a Teferi Hero of Dominaria from your opponent. You're living the absolute dream.
If
Or
you had a Fable, I mean, there's a lot of good
Fable,
things
yeah,
to hit, but sometimes you just look at 2 lands and you're like, this was not, it was fine.
yeah,
So I definitely think it was. I liked it, for that tournament. I don't know if I would continue to have it in sideboard moving forward.
yeah.
Um, I mean, the best cards in the sideboard was Chrome Host Seed Shark.
Talk to me. Talk to me about this card. This is a card that um, I talked to with some of my one of my Patreon members, and I still haven't tried it yet. I got to play it a little bit on stream a couple days ago, but like I've literally played it in maybe one game. It would seem pretty strong. Obviously, we're
So
just a deck of instants and sorceries, basically. So
so Chrome Host Seed Shark is very good to bring in versus like aggressive decks, versus combo decks that want to kill you because you can create pressure while still doing other things. Um, the body on it is just very good at blocking a lot of things. It's good at blocking flying creatures. It's good at blocking everything in humans. So
yeah.
spirits, humans. It can tango with some angels. But I think angels is a very good matchup, anyways.
Oh yeah.
But
Just
but it's just that being a 2/4 body is very important in this format. It doesn't die easily to Fatal Push. It has to be revolted.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't die to any of the 3 mana burn spells. Like it just it's a good body that is very synergistic with your deck and is something that you want to be bringing in against a good variety of decks, especially post board where they know that you have no creatures in your deck, so they're going to have to go down on removal.
Yeah.
Um, but also good in open deck lists because they see that you have these creatures.
And it's
Dallas's
like, what
open
are we
deck
gonna
list.
do?
Yeah, so they have to keep some removal in because they know, you know, you have creatures that you're going to bring in. They can't
Yeah.
just, take every single removal spell out of their deck. So,
Um,
very, very, very happy with that card.
yeah, I mean, it seems like an all-star, especially in this deck, because you're playing. One thing about the Azorius version of Control is there's a lot of enchantment-based removal typically. Um, but with this, obviously, does Chromos Seed Shark is
It's
it
it's
instants and
it's just
sorceries
like
only?
nope, it's like
Oh,
Shark
it's
Tycoon.
oh
Uh,
wow.
because
Okay,
it's
well, I
the
stand corrected. This card's just
but
actually nuts.
well, the thing is the difference because you do bring up a good point. I mean, I think when people are talking about Dimir, they normally talk about it in the context of Dimir versus blue white. So
Sure, that
just
is
to
true.
kind of, we can kind of transition into that, but this deck, you have a lot of cheaper spells that you can generate, you know, tokens off of. So
Yeah,
you're
the
considered
curves
to
the
become.
curves much smaller, much lower.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just cast Chrome Sea Shark and then you dig and make it 8/8. I mean, there
Oh my god.
there are cards that you're playing that traditional blue white doesn't have access to that
Yeah,
synergize with Chrome Host Sea Shark well. Because even if you're just consider Fatal Push making these 1/1 incubation tokens that later you can just flip to chump block and you
right.
can flip, you know, every spell you cast now just has make a XX tagged onto it. I mean, you know how good that is with, a Resolve Shark Typhoon. It's
Oh
the
yeah,
same thing basically with Chrome Sea
yeah,
Shark. Um,
absolutely. Um, this is actually a really good question here. Are there any other planeswalkers you would consider playing in Dimir other than Narset?
I've tried, and I didn't care for them. So again, if you think
What
kind
did
of,
you try?
I tried Soren the Mirthless. It was
That's the
fine,
first one that came to my mind too. Yeah.
but he most of the time is just worse than a Memory Deluge, which
Right.
he kind of fits in that slot. Um, and then a card I've seen some people play is like the 5 mana Ashiok, the Nightmare Muse, which is
I've played that one just because I for content you're doing it's a little bit different, right?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to play
I've
the
played the
fun,
card
cool
before
cards,
too.
and
Yeah, I get it.
I like it. I love the character. But yeah,
I love
it's like
Ashiok.
I'm hoping that in Wilds of Eldraine they have
You gotta
confirmed that Ashiok is going to be a planeswalker. I hope that Ashiok is what Dimir Control need, like Dimir version of Teferi 5, Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Like, let's get that. That would be sick.
That'd be kinda crazy. So, um, going back to where we talked about Wafo's deck. So if you look at Wafo's deck in Modern, um, it's all interaction, Shark Typhoons, and you have, like, 2 small Teferi
Yeah,
because you Teferi is more of, like A, in Modern, you have to play it because it's a hate piece. B,
yeah,
it's you can tempo a thing. It's kind of just a spell. Narset in this deck it's just a dig through time that you don't have to delve away your yard for. Um, that's really all she's used for. Having the Gyro Reach in there, your opponent has to respect that you can lock them out of the game with it, but that's not her primary use. She's just
right.
really a spell. Um, and then all the other walkers, just you with this deck, you really don't want to tap out. So
Liliana
you,
Dreadhorde General. Let's get it.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could probably play that out of the board, but
I don't. I've tried again.
yeah, I
Again
don't
for
know.
content. I've tried it. I think the last time I tried Liliana Dreadhorde General, it like made them sack two creatures, then literally died the next turn, and then the other time it like made a creature and then it died. So like
Yeah.
very medium.
Well, so so we briefly talked on about the difference between blue white and Dimir, or yeah, Azorius and Dimir.
Yeah.
So one thing about Azorius is that you do get better walkers. You get Teferi 5 and Wandering Emperor. I mean, they're very powerful cards on their own. Dimir,
Oh
you
yeah.
don't have any walkers that are that powerful. So,
Which is
you know,
surprising, right? Like why haven't they? It's Planeswalker's been out like a decade and we still haven't gotten a good Demir one.
well,
Come
maybe
on.
maybe we will. Maybe we will.
I fingers
But
crossed. I really hope so.
so the kind of the strengths, okay, so the strengths of playing Demir is that it lets you play a more traditional draw go control game. Your
Yeah.
answers are better early game, so you have fatal push, you have Thoughtseize, you have these 2 mana removal spells, um, to kind of filter in with your counter spells, so you have a lot of play early game, whereas Azorius has to rely on, you know if you play lay down arms, you have to make your mana base awkward. If you play portable hole, or I mean, I know they've moved away from that mostly to play like just lockdowns.
Yeah.
So then you don't even have cheap removal, and you're relying on like Field of Ruin to deal with manlands instead of Fatal Push.
Yep.
So your game is more awkward early for blue white, but you get more powerful late game things. You get Wandering Emperor, you get Teferi, you get
It's a huge point.
better. Yeah, you get better rats in the form of Supreme Verdict. I mean, sometimes Extinction Event is better than Supreme Verdict,
Oh yeah. Exile
but Black,
super.
yeah, but Black has to play like we can't get just you know a Black Day of Judgment
Right.
printed because it's too good apparently. Um,
As if, yeah. Like what if
so
yeah, like Day of Judgment, lose 2 life or lose 3 life. Like just to make it black and just to kind of be worse, I
I
guess.
who even knows? But you get better rats and you get better late game. You also get Dovin's veto, but again, part of blue white's issue in my mind is that it feels kind of clunky when all your you know you have all these spells that are blue white, your negates are blue white, and then you're playing cancel, which I think cancel is unplayable in Pioneer. I will say that forever. But when your cancel is blue white, and you're trying to play colorless lands in your deck, and you end up with you know you have 5 mana, you got to counter 2 spells. I've been in that situation before, and one's a Field of Ruin, and it's like, well, I guess I'll just die.
I guess I'll just die. No, like literally though, that is how it feels sometimes when yeah.
So,
Yeah. Cancel.
so when I started getting back into playing Pioneer, obviously a lot of RCQs are Pioneer. I hadn't played the format since Inverter existed.
Yeah.
I came back. I was trying to play blue white, and every time I play the deck, I was like, this deck is so clunky. It's like I can't. It's driving me nuts. Like all my lands coming to play tapped at weird times. And this is when everyone was playing Portable Hole. That's when I started back. So I started trying to explore different options. I liked that Fatal Push is the best removal spell.
Oh
It
yeah.
also gives you access to Thoughtseize. Um, when I was building this version, I was playing Sinister Sabotage, and I had done well with it. I had like several 5-0s with it. I mean, I I was doing very well with that version. But every time I had Sinister in my hand, I was like, this is the most awkward counterspell in this. Cancel is just not playable. So
Right.
went back, um, basically changed the deck so that Thoughtseize took the space of some of these more expensive counterspells. you take a card. Two life is most of the times, palpable.
Yeah.
It lets you map out the rest of your plays, and then you can play, this differing suite of 2 mana counter spells between Giant Lock, negate, change, and make disappear. Um, and it felt so much smoother than trying to play cancel. Um, but
Yeah.
I like blue white.
Yeah. I mean, blue white is the most. I mean, it is the most popular version of the deck. Um, is that because of the shiny planeswalkers and like the good wrath? Maybe, and obviously people just. I mean, Azorius has been a deck since the beginning of the game, basically. So I think there are just people that tend to skew towards Azorius just because it's habit almost, right?
Yeah.
Um, th-
Well, and I do think the deck is powerful. You have a lot of powerful things to do,
yeah,
but going back to why I think the deck is very clunky, you're trying to both counter things but also be a tap out deck. It's gotten better with cards like the Wandering Emperor. Like blue white has a much scarier turn for four. Like if
yeah,
you have Emperor and Deluge, like you have a lot of things that threaten on turn four that you don't have in Dimir. But the tension between trying to be a tap out control deck and be a counterspell centric control
yeah.
deck, a draw go deck, is very apparent in blue white. And that's why I really like to see people like Patrick Wu who are doing something very different,
Oh
where
yeah,
he's leaning into the tap out completely. He's like, I'm gonna, play these strict proctors, I'm gonna cheat on mana, and then I'm just gonna do big tap out blue white things and take over the game.
yeah,
I mean, I think there's a lot of space for innovation. I could see, a blue white version that's playing cards like Consider, that's playing Dig Through Time, but it's would look very different than what we're used to seeing on a blue white. Um, but
yeah.
I
And
don't have the.
no, go for it.
I'm just saying I don't have the time to figure that out. So I hope somebody else does. I think Skur Islands in front. Skur was
Yeah.
testing out some of that in Pioneer.
Oh yeah. And I saw his list that it was definitely innovative and right on par with kind of his brand of Azorius Control.
Yeah,
But I do think when we were kind of talking about it in the pre-show, or well, before we went live, I guess you could say, it is a hive mind, and I mean it happens in Magic all the time with probably every single archetype. You see a list that starts doing well, and it's just kind of like uh, the lay down arms version that was super hot for a while, had its moment in the sun, and then obviously Boros Convoke was the thing over the RC weekend. So then we went to all uh, all lockdowns, times four lockdowns, and now is it time to shave the lockdowns? I think so, because that deck proved to be just kind of a flash in the pan. I mean, it's still a fine deck, but it's not
it'll
nearly Hogak or whatever they were
yeah
saying about it.
it'll exist in the format, and I think
Yeah.
something I think an important thing that I've always tried to take into consideration when I am testing for a tournament and building a deck for a tournament. Like the Demir deck, that deck I built it for Dallas.
Right.
Obviously, I am washed up paper boomer and I'm not used to playing 11 and a half hours of Magic in one day. And I
It's a lot.
definitely made some misplays. I made some misplays on camera for sure, but because I went back and watched game one was great. Unfortunately no one got to see game one. Game one was like uh, exactly how I wanted it to play out. And then games two and three, I watched. I'm like, what am I doing? And that was round five, but it had already been like it was so late already. Anyways,
Yeah. It was like 6
but
hours, right?
yeah, my point though is when I build decks, I build them for a tournament. So the important thing to understand when you're playing control is that the deck is it's a, you have to adapt it to how the format is at this particular point in time
Yes.
because control is only like for example, I stopped by the shop tonight to see if they had any lotto tickets, and they were already sold out. But my buddy asked me, are there any cards I want out of this? Like, are you gonna play this in your control deck? And I said, I have no idea. I said, there's so many new cards that have come in.
Yeah,
You basically have to wait for the metagame to, shape itself, and then you have to shape control based off the metagame. So
absolutely.
Red White Convoke hit the scenes, a week basically before Dallas, and that changes the context of everyone else's deck.
Everything,
And
yeah.
then and now the control deck has to change based off of not only Red White Convoke, but how everyone else is changing their and it's less so in Pioneer. I mean, they're gonna add more ways to deal with Convoke, but still you have to understand how your control deck fits within you know, within everything else.
Yeah, the
And so,
context of the rest of the format.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, that's like
while
the old saying, like, "Never play control week 1," because you have no idea what you're fighting. Like, why would you do
yeah,
that? You're just gonna get stomped by some random garbage. So,
yeah, but I mean, but it's like while I played this deck exactly for Dallas, it doesn't mean that the next time I would play this deck, I'd play you know,
same
the exact
75.
same 75. Or
Yeah,
because maybe at that time Azorius is better. Maybe someone has figured out a better build. I would probably still play Dimir because I still think it's the control archetype that is good in this format, and I would want to play it. But as the sideboard especially is like understanding what
oh,
you
yeah.
need to be successful.
That's super like, that's why, like, I always say, like, I get people asking me, like, you know, asking about card selections or whatever, and it's like, dude, the reason I played, like, 4 Supreme Verdicts at my local Pioneer tournament is because there were 6 mono white decks in the room out of the 12 players or whatever. Like, don't play 4 in your 75. Like, you should probably play, like, probably 2 or maybe less. I don't know. It depends on your metagame. Like, whatever you're metagaming for determines how your sideboard and how your main deck should look, to be honest. Like, um, that would be my big I think you hit on something. I think, like, the biggest thing, it's kind of like the overarching theme of this episode, just from the rip, because you're not playing the most popular control deck. So already it's like, don't follow the hive mind of the format. You got to really try and peg down whatever metagame you think is going to be in the room for whatever tournament, and build your deck and build your sideboard accordingly. I don't know if
Oh,
you agree with
and
that, but
I yes and no. I've played control for so long that I felt very confident,
yeah,
you know, playing not blue white. And because I thought that the tools are better for, all the reasons I've listed.
right.
Now, if I'm someone, you know, coming into it, I just want to play blue white, even if I have a stock deck list. I think the most important thing you can do as you know, especially as a newer control player is to understand why cards are in your deck, why cards are in your sideboard, and everyone can look at a sideboard guide. Everyone, sideboard is the hardest part of Magic.
Oh yeah,
Um, but in to things that will make you a better player is to understand why you're bringing cards in versus certain matchups and why you're taking certain cards out. I mean, I used to joke all the time, I my buddy would be like, well, what are you sideboarding? You're like, you take out the bad cards and put in the good cards.
right,
I mean, but it is so much more than that with control because you have to understand what is you're gonna not only what is your opponent trying to do game one, but games two and three, what are they trying to do now? And
right.
how are you gonna have to adapt your deck to handle that? Because you're playing the answer deck. Everyone
Right.
else is playing a deck that asks questions. You're playing a deck that has answers. So you have to make sure your answers are gonna
Oh
line up
yeah,
with their questions.
absolutely. Yeah, it's and it could be tricky. And like you said, sideboarding is definitely, if not the hardest, one of the hardest things. And it's the reason I think that on Arena, best of one is the most popular way to play Magic. It's because you just get in, and maybe that's a time thing as well. But um, yeah, I mean, sideboarding is difficult. I think having a plan, having a purpose for every card in your sideboard is obviously important. But I think, kind of to your point, maybe newer players don't really think about it as much. New control players, because, and I never, you said that, and I never really thought about it, but like the context of every match changes in my like a lot from
Well,
game one to game two, because you are the answer deck, and you have to kind of almost go next level to make sure okay, well, if you're taking out, your wraths against a mirror match, well, they're bringing in all their angels and they're just going to crush you or whatever.
so
So,
let's take Lotus, for example. So I've played a lot of times versus Lotus with blue black. You play against Lotus with any control deck, and your immediate thought is, well, I need to get these rats out of my deck. I got to get all any kill spells out of my deck. It's got to go. Got to
mhm,
go. They're playing combo deck. I need ways to stop their combo.
sure.
But
And then you get
you've played
wrecked
you've
by a Zakama.
exactly you've played against Lotus enough. You know that post board they're still gonna have a Leer. They're gonna bring in maybe Zakama. They're gonna bring in either
Dramoka.
Dramoka or Sphinx of the Final Word. So in blue black, I'm leaving, my edicts in. I'm
Oh, yeah.
leaving, you know, maybe I'll leave in an extinction event. I forget what my exact board, but I'm leaving in cards that are going to act as an answer to this.
Yeah.
Because
Hedging your
I
bets. Yeah.
yeah, well, I know that over the course of a game, I'm gonna have to answer one of those things. And if I
Right.
don't have an answer, I'm gonna be real sad when I have to pass turn with that Lear still in play.
Yeah, and it helps that the edict of choice just kills like everything now. So, that's probably a easier because it kills Chandra. Like you can just like, all right, Chandra's dead. Okay, Lear's dead.
Shieldred Edict is a very
It's nuts,
it's the best Doomblade ever printed, probably.
right?
And somehow it's still not good enough in some situations, which
Yeah,
is the crux of every black 2 mana removal spell.
yeah, right.
It
um,
is a very good one.
yeah. Um, but no, that's super interesting. The way you frame that, I think, is pretty insightful. Um, so how do you think the Dimir Control is positioned in the current Pioneer metagame?
So I know some new things have popped up, like I've
Is
seen the Is It deck
the
and a
Zoomer
couple different
Drakes?
things. Yeah, Zoomer and Drix. Um, I felt very good going into Dallas. I think, you know, Rakdos for any control deck, it's it's close. The
It's very
worst
close.
thing about Rakdos versus Demir is you do not have a clean answer for um Reckoner Bankbuster unless you can Thought Season or counter
Yeah,
it. But a lot of times,
temporary lockdown's super nice against that.
yeah, Lockdown's very good against that. So you do lose that equity, and sometimes they just go Thoughtseize you, take your Thoughtseize, play Reckoner Bankbuster on the play, and you're like, yeah, now I have to fight through this.
Yep.
But it's not an unwinnable matchup. It's a close matchup, and it's depending on how good both you and your opponent are.
Right.
Mono green,
Just get good.
it,
Just get good. That's what you're telling us, right?
yeah, just get good. Mono green ended up being a little bit tougher than I first expected. I did play against like some very good mono green players. But if I were to change anything, I would probably, you know, construct something more in the sideboard to deal with mono green, probably another Thoughtseize and stuff like that. You know, I'll I don't know. People love to say like I mulliganed too. I like, sometimes it happens. I think, my
Oh,
losses
was
aren't.
there a sketchy mulligan? Were people calling you out or something? I don't know.
No, no, I meant I
Oh,
just I against my two mono green opponents on day two, I just had it was rough, and it's like a matchup. Their threats are like you don't have a lot of clean answers to, outside of Extinction Event, and I took some lines that I eventually got punished by. So it's like that's a matchup I would like to probably test more, and I do a lot of my testing on Magic Online, and
right.
mono green is underrepresented online solely because they don't like to click through the combo, and people will make them click through the combo, and it takes so long. So legitimately, it is underrepresented online.
Right.
Um, so, but I mean,
So
I feel
that's
like
the
the deck.
reason you never run into Gift Storm. Oh, okay. It's not that it's terrible now.
But against a lot of the rest of the field, I felt incredibly favored. I mean, uh, Crusher, great against Rogues, great against Greasefang. I mean, when your Greasefang opponent reads your deck list and then they just sigh, um, that's a good sign that
Oh,
it's a
that's
good
awesome.
matchup.
That is
Um,
amazing.
but no, like you have a lot of game against humans. It just a lot of the format you have a lot of game against. Rakdos is close, and then Mono Green I probably need to figure out. But this is the only control deck that I played that I felt like you have game against anything in the field. Every
Yeah.
time I played blue white, I felt. Um, I mean, I go back to Lotus Field. I because every time I played blue white against Lotus Field, I'm like
It felt like a dog.
felt like a dog. When you have Thoughtseize in your deck, you feel a lot less like a dog.
Oh yeah. That evens the odds, I'm sure. Tilts the tables.
Yeah,
Yes. Thoughtseize is the great equalizer, I guess you could say. No, yeah. I mean, there
very
are
much.
certainly matchups. I mean, even mono green can be really rough if they get the right draw. I think that's probably true against almost any deck. Uh, but I mean, I've never and would never play mono green devotion, but I think that's like if you have the nut draw that you're just gonna crush anybody.
Well,
Um
you get Moto bugged in real life. You thought sees the Cavalier, and you're like,
Whoop!
and they draw the Cavalier, and you're like, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Um yeah, that what's another bad? Azorius Spirits is pretty really rough for Azorius Control because they
Well,
have
and
counter magic plus pressure. Is that's always rough for
and
control?
and the thing that's another matchup where I was just, you do have Supreme Verdict, which is great. I mean, you
Until they
you are
spell
100,
it.
of course, but the versus Spirits playing blue white, and I was playing all. You play your sorcery speed removal, and they're like, "Yep, I
Flash.
totally knew you're gonna do that." Flash in my hexproof guy
Yeah.
or counter it, and then untap for my turn. When you have Fatal Push and instant speed removal in your deck,
Now we're
you
cooking.
you
Yeah.
yeah, you get to force them to play on their turn instead of them just forcing you to play on your turn.
Yeah.
Um, you
Makes sense.
you get a lot more game there.
Yeah,
So
and you get to actually dictate, I guess, the terms of engagement a little bit better.
correct. Instead of them just pressuring you on your turn where you have to tap out.
Yeah, just jamming every single turn. Like, do you have an answer? All right, you had an answer for that, but do you have an answer for this at instant speed? No? Okay. We're done here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a pretty I think that might be one of the worst matchups for Azorius Control. And I say that and people are always surprised by it, but like if you think about it, I mean, everybody brings up Verdict, but like they just have Spell Queller, they pressure you, they have like
But
Curiosity and
even then,
counter
like
magic and
a good spirits player isn't gonna shove all their guys into a supreme verdict. They're gonna keep
right,
hitting you with
exactly.
two. Yeah, they're gonna keep hitting you with two guys or three
Right.
guys, and then you wrap, and they're like,
Chip
okay,
away.
great. push these all in, end of your turn,
Yep.
hit you,
Yep.
go.
Yep. Yeah, they'll
So
get you. They nickel and dime you for sure.
yep,
Definitely.
they are they
That's my experience at least.
I mean, if you are a control player out there and um are tired of dying to spirits, I mean I would at least try out
Come on over to the
blue
dark
black.
side.
Yeah, especially if you are a control player that's used to playing draw go. I mean, it in my mind there are two styles of control. There's tap out and there's
Yeah.
draw go. And if you are accustomed to playing draw go, I would definitely give this a try in Pioneer. Um, it will be definitely up your alley.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be playing this on stream. Some your list. Um, I might be making those changes that you suggested, taking out Siphon Insight and probably putting a Shieldred in a fourth. I'm sorry, a third Thought Seize. But yeah, I definitely want to try it. I haven't played it in a couple weeks. Just Dimir Control, obviously not your build, but like I haven't tried it in a couple weeks. It's definitely a different experience because, like you said, you'd have to be extremely cognizant not only of your life total, but your win conditions. You can't just roll
Mm.
through all your sharks, right?
Yeah, and blue white, like you'll kill them with something. You have so much stuff in
Yeah,
your
there's
deck
a
that
million win conditions.
I mean, something will kill them. And this one, you got to be a little more conservative.
Right. Yeah. Nah, I'm super stoked when I saw this. When I saw you with this, I was like, yeah, we gotta have John back on the podcast to talk about Dimir. It's a deck that I like. It's a deck that I play, obviously not as much as Azorius, but it's always a good time. I really wish, and fingers crossed again, we get Ashiok is just a stone cold nut, excellent planeswalker. Um, then it'll be real. It'll be go time for real for me with Dimir. um, but yeah, do you have any final thoughts on this deck, on the format, on anything Magic related?
Um, Mainly just what I said before. If you're a control player looking to play a different style of control, I'd give this a go. I think there is a lot of room to innovate, not on, just on Dimir, but on Azorius.
Right.
I feel like the current build of Azorius has been very stagnant for a long time, and I think there's a lot to do there. Patrick Wu, we talked about his deck,
Oh yeah.
but I think there's a lot people can do out there of just trying things that are not, and not just trying things to try things, but trying things with a purpose. Like why, putting cards in your deck for specific reasons for the metagame, and please just cut cancel. I don't care what you have to do. Just get that card out of every Pioneer deck.
Get
It
it
is
out of
not
here.
playable. No, please do not put cancel in your deck.
Yeah. You
I
and
guess
you
that's my that's my final word. Just please cut cancel.
please get
Don't play it.
canceled out of here. You and George Jabor are both on the cut cancel plan.
It's terrible, man. Card's awful.
um, where can people find you on the internet?
Uh, if I'm not in Magic Hibernation, you can find me on Twitter pretty much. Uh, I will post there probably very infrequently, but when I do post, I'll post for like a month straight before a tournament, and just
Go
you'll see
radio
too much
silent.
crap from me, and then you won't hear from me for like 2 months. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Very similar to me. um, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of the episode. I had you on, oh gosh, it was years ago, I think, at this point.
it was quite some time. Yeah,
And I think we were talking about modern at that point, but
I believe we were.
so
I want to say it was like some Stoneforge deck.
God.
It was blue
Remember
white. I
remember
mean,
when
it
that
was
card was playable with blue cards in modern?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I had
The good
Spell
old
Queller in
days.
my deck too.
Let's go. um but yeah, everybody go follow John at Hey Pharaoh on Twitter. he's a great follow when he's not in Magic hibernation. And again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome.
Absolutely.
You are a wealth of knowledge, not only for Dimir, but just for the game in general. And it was super cool seeing you on camera. I know it didn't go so well for you that weekend, but
I look, I day two'd with
yeah,
a with like with an X2 record. I felt good. Look, I was happy with my performance. It was a rough day one.
yeah,
And I'm old. I honestly I don't play enough Magic anymore.
I hear you. Yeah. I'm like you at this point. I play mostly digital Magic in whatever form that
Mhm.
takes. But yeah, even like a 6 round RCQ. I'm like, is this thing over yet? Like,
Oh God,
um,
and God forbid they start at 1 p.m., which is
oh my
like
dude, that
every place around here.
literally the last RCQ I was at, I was like, why are we starting at 1? This is luckily it was only 5 rounds and I lost my win in it, so I got to go home early, but silver lining, right? All right. Thanks everybody for listening, watching. We do stream these live on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So if you are watching this after the fact on YouTube, make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe, all that awesome stuff. And before I go, of course, we got to hit up the housekeeping yet again. Definitely a huge shout out again to my Patreon, my brand new Patreon members, Richard, Raul, Josh, and Sam. Thank you all so much. If you do enjoy the podcast or any of my content, you can support it directly in a more monetary way. If you dig it that much, you can head on over to patreon.com/lessalex. And for less than $1 an episode, you get access to the Patreon, and you also get access to my sideboard guide that I just put up. I've put 2 updates to it so far since I posted it. So go check that out. That's for Azorius Control, not for Dimir Control. So go check that out if you're interested, or if you just want to support the content. Check that out. And as a reminder, the podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, and you can also watch it, like I said, on YouTube. And make sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give a 5-star and a review. It literally takes 30 seconds, guys. Please just consider giving a review. It really does help the analytics and everything. And check out my Quiet Speculation content. I do a weekly hybrid article / video for them over on their website and their YouTube page. So go check that out. This week I'll be playing Lotus Control. Should be pretty sweet. And then if you want to chop it up with me in a more casual sense, hit up Twitter at @lessalex over there, and join the open Discord. It's open. There is a section for Patreon members, but it is open and free Discord. We have fun. Thank you everybody for watching. John, again, thank you for hanging out and talking some Dimir. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep spreading that Dimir propaganda. Adios.
Okay, we'll talk again in like 3 years.
Yeah, right. See you guys.
See you, Alex.